remember the last time Spencer Drate joined us, we went through each and every single one of the albums that he brought with him, and he's brought more with him, and he's got the 45 covers too. And I love this kind of stuff because it's really easy. But before we start to get over to talk about the 19 Sire albums and the 45s, tell us how you got involved with Sire Records to begin with.
Yeah, it's a great story. It's one of those stories in my life that I really love. I was waiting online at a movie theater. There was a guy there who was working for the theater named Stephen Taylor. And so I started talking with him, and he said, we started talking what you do, blah, blah, blah. And I told him I was a type designer for album covers, and I designed album covers. So he said, well, I need a type guy. I never forgot that, the type guy. And so I said, what are you doing? He said, well, I got this artist, Richard Hell, I'm working with on an album called Blank Generation. And if you know the history of punk, it's one of the top albums ever done on Sire Records. And then that's what led me into Sire Records. And so I worked part of that album. Stephen Taylor was doing the illustration. And that's how I started. And literally I was thrown into the mix of Sire Records through John Gillespie, then art director, and of course the famous Seymour Stein, who, by the way, has a great book out called Siren Song about his life. He was the owner of Sire Records, and of course he was one of the founders of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which, by the way, myself and my partner Judith are in with our collection of album covers and 45s. But that's how we started with Sire. I started, I think the first project we'll talk about is a sleeve for Talking Heads, Take Me to the River, very famous single by Talking Heads, and was part of the More Buildings and Food album, which was came out. And that sleeve is very important because it was in a Museum of Modern Art show in 2010, co-curated by Laurie Anderson, and it was a great music graphic show at that time called Looking at Music Side 2.
And I remember getting this 45 in the record store. It was Jack's Music Store in Red Bank, New Jersey.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
And on this cover, it's in black and white. And right in the middle, you have a picture of a church. It's Full Gospel Tabernacle with Pastor Al Green.
Right.
Now, Al Green is also not the pastor, but a famous artist, a musical act, right? I forget off the top of my head, but if you want to get romantic, just put on an Al Green album and away you go, right? Where did you find this Full Gospel Tabernacle to take?
Well, I didn't find it. What would happen is something like stuff that I did sometimes with Sire was they give me a photograph, so Talking Heads gave me that photograph. Came from David Byrne, and so basically I did the typography on it to make it look good, and the artwork on the bottom I used Electroset Waves art, which makes it kind of cool, and turned out to be a really nice sleeve.
Yeah. The A side is Take Me to the River, and the B side is Thank You for Sending Me an Angel. And on the back side, the flip side, says Full Gospel Tabernacle, dedicated to the glory of God, December 19th, 1976. The church fits that architecture of the time. This is something I'm into for whatever reason. But I know David Byrne was just having fun with the fact that it was Reverend Al Green as pastor. All right, let's move to the next one that's on the list.
Well, we got our famous...
the Ramones.
Famous
great
Road
Ramones.
to Ruin.
Oh, this is fantastic. What a great album.
And this was John Holmstrom did the artwork from a concept which was given him, and he refined it into an amazing illustration. I did the typography on it, basically throughout the inner sleeve and for the cover. A great photograph in the back cover by Danny Fields, the manager, who was very good at photography and has actually had a photo book recently put out on the Ramones, his work on the Ramones. So it's kind of an iconic cover. And
well, it's interesting when you look at the back, okay? And I would, for those of us who remember the time when you would buy the albums, Maybe you were eating a bowl of Cheerios for breakfast, and you got tired of looking at the back of the Cheerios box. So maybe your record collection was near you. You pick it up and you start reading it, or while the record was playing. After a while of watching it go around and around and around and the spindle at 33.5 RPMs, you'd pick up the album, you'd look on the inside, you start reading the lyrics to the songs, and then you'd find out who was on the album. This one has side 1, side 2 on the back, and then you have Johnny Ramone on guitar, Joey Ramone lead vocals, Dee Dee Ramone on the bass, Marky Ramone on the drums, produced and engineered by T. Ed Reilly and
Tommy Early. Who is Tommy Ramone, really?
Okay.
You know?
And Ed Stasium. So
big time.
most kids would probably not. They would not even recognize that. You pointed it out. I didn't even. Just was that not even thinking of it. Then it's got all the other people that were part of the recording. Then we get to the front cover concept by Gus McDonald. Did you work directly with Gus?
Well, no. Actually, the thing that I worked on the typography. So what happened was Gus McDonald would be the person hooked up with John Holmstrom, who did the artwork.
Right.
And that's where
That's right.
it progresses into the whole thing that way.
Well, what it says here, album designed by Spencer Drate. So you took all the other parts and you put them together.
And
yeah.
Exactly.
That's
and
great.
The typography. But I was very strong in typography, so I was very lucky. I was very strong at typography, and you got to have the mixture of great typography with visualization.
That's right.
It's a photograph or art, and
yeah, you have to be able to put it all together to make it a complete work. And that's
now
fantastic.
the inner sleeve is not there, but Bob Gruen I have to give him credit. He had photographs on the inside. So that was part of the deal.
Chip Rock and Bob Gruen.
Chip Rock and Bob Gruen.
Now the Ramones official fan club. I wonder if it's still in operation. P.O. Box 892, Radio City Station, New York, 10019, which is over by I guess by Radio City Music Hall, that area.
I don't know.
Probably
no
in
more than I do.
6th Avenue. All right, let's take a look at the next album cover.
Well, this is actually a 45
we got the 45
from that album. This is a very famous sleeve.
The more Ramones. God, I can't get enough of this.
Yeah, Don't Come Close. The thing about the design is very interesting. I saw that the letters were almost the same amount of letters on each word. And I said, you know what? Why don't I blow this up and just stack the type, put a rule to hold it together on both sides, and see how it looks. And I picked this typewriter type I picked because it's very raw. And that's Ramones, if you know the Ramones,
right.
Very raw. And so that's basically the feel of that. But
can people find these art designs anywhere? Do you have them
No,
available?
it's hard. I mean, I'm trying to get extras of it. It was difficult on eBay this is a really rare sleeve, I think, as believe it or not.
Now we're down to you're gonna
Fear of
Fear of Music. Oh, what a great album. Let's talk about
Okay,
this.
this is an album to talk about. It was first of all, it was in a MoMA show in 2016, music graphics show, very famous show, and then it became picked by the Museum of Modern Art Permanent Collection as part of the collection, which is very amazing. I co-designed it with Talking Heads. It's a great story. Jerry Harrison visited Tina Weymouth's brother, was an architect, and saw this patterned floor. And that's how it starts, and then all of a sudden that becomes the cover, embossed.
Yeah, let me just explain that the floors, those metal type of floors.
Yeah,
Right.
I guess what it was a
Industrial metal.
Yeah.
And then you painted it black.
No, that came from so. Queen's Litho printed it. It went through different stages, like the heads wanted real vinyl. I said, forget about that, too much money. Then they went...
They wanted a real vinyl album cover?
Exactly.
Really?
Oh, yeah, it's too expensive, forget about it. Then they went to some concept with, it was unreal, like styrofoam box with electric lights, and you took the shrink wrap off, the type was underneath and it disappeared. John Gillespie said, look, Spencer, I think we need a Russian scientist right now because the concepts are getting crazy. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we ended up with this concept, and to make it easy, Queen's Litho did a board, a matte board. I did the typography on it with the heads, and came up with, I added this touch of a green, a day glow green type, put the type in a box, which held it together on the front cover. Very simple design, and by the way, very interesting. The last album cover not to have a barcode.
When I look at this, I can't help but think of St. Mark's Place for whatever reason. Over First and St. Mark's, and you have all of those restaurants, including the Physical Graffiti Building, which is across the street. A lot of people think that that's in England. It's not. It's right over First and Mark Place. It's got a very village type of feel to it.
You know, Peter Saville, one of the great designers, this cover was in a book called 100 Best Album Covers by the famous Storm Thorgerson, and Peter Saville wrote a quote about it. He said, "This is a great example of industria, quote, art."
Oh, I see, yeah. Cover.
And that's the way they went on that. There were sleeves that I actually did were amazing that were never printed. Like David had a print, like a industrial drawing, you know, with the skeleton type sketches of a machine. Gorgeous stuff, and it was never printed. So there were certain things off this album which gave that industria a carryover visually.
What's the next album that we have?
We have.
I'll let you explain what it looks like to the listener.
Well, this is a group shot done by the famous Mick Rock, one of his iconic photographs for the front cover. He approached it two different ways. He approached, first of all, shooting the group with leather jackets, and then he did a shoot with colored T-shirts. And I think what happened here is with the record label wanted a softer look to the group, try to commercialize it more. But when I saw the two shots, with the leather jacket and without, I thought this cover was much more dynamic.
So yeah, this album by the Ramones, End of Century, is produced by Phil Spector, and side one kicks off with Do You Remember Rock and Roll, followed by I'm Affected, Danny Says, Chinese Rock, The Return of Jackie and Judy, Let's Go, and then side two, Baby I Love You, I Can't Make It on Time, This Ain't Havana, Rock and Roll High School, which
classic.
All the kids loved that song when that came out. All the Way and High Risk Insurance. So, you know, a couple of nice tracks, even if you're a marginal Ramones fan or you weren't even a big-time Ramones fan. There's something on that album I think you would like if you got a hold of it.
So this is the inner sleeve. Yeah. Now, this is a story and a half because they loved what I did with the inner sleeve art.
That's right.
And that ended up being like overseas on some 45s, actually, that visualization. Which I didn't design, but I saw that it was being used. And then this is an example of, I didn't design this, but this is a usage of that. But you know, they had a vote on the group, and they wanted there's a number of the group, the Ramones, that wanted that inner sleeve visualization that I did for the cover, but it didn't go through.
Oh, well, you know what? It's kind of, how would you explain it? It's almost like a negative.
Well, yeah, I converted the photograph into a high contrast at that time of just black and white, and knock out all the middle tones, and then I put this nice orange background behind it. But like I said,
and you know what it's called in the old color scheme of computers? Mustard stand.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Wow,
you know, it's got the yellow and the red. That's fascinating.
And then this was a cover I didn't design, but you can see they used that posterization. That's what it's called, posterization. You knock out use that. I didn't design that, but you can see how they use that posterized cover.
Yeah,
overseas.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to take it out.
Take it out.
Oh, look at that. Man, that's a beauty. No scratches on it. Just got a little dust.
I haven't played it. I tell you, I haven't played it.
It's never been played once.
Never been played. This, of course,
oh,
is a
look at this. Yes.
I mean, this is famous.
Then there was the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And was it Kip Randall? Who was the girl? I forget her name. Maybe Patrick would know. It's Ramones, Rock and Roll High School. We all saw the movie. It was iconic. It was cultural. And it's almost as if anybody that was going to high school at the time that this was out wanted to emulate what was going on in that Rock and Roll High School. So side one, you have Rock and Roll High School, produced and engineered by Ed Stasium, remixed by Phil Spector, music from the original motion picture soundtrack of Rock and Roll High School. I'm going to give you the catalog number, SRK 6070. A New World Pictures release. And Do You Want to Dance? Do you want to dance? I love that.
It's great.
It goes back to 1979. Can you believe it? Wow. Tempus fugit, memento mori, de gustibus, nonus disputandum. All right, taste is not to be argued. Let's
So
move
this
to
is a sleeve.
Oh,
I should have brought it
wow.
in earlier, but this is part of, I think, Fear of Music. It comes out with the Fear of Music
Talking Heads.
album, a single called Cities. The Plastics, a group called the Plastics in Japan, supplied the artwork. I did
Yeah.
the typography.
Says artwork by the Plastics,
Yep.
or by Plastics.
A group
it's
that
great.
Heads really liked. They liked
It's
it.
interesting.
Japanese group.
The color is, I don't think, something that would have been typical for the time period.
Mm-hmm.
And this is 1980. Well, maybe, all right, the fashion at the time was very interesting and almost mimics the fashion, but you could see a Japanese influence on that.
Right.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Okay, then we got the famous Pretenders album came out.
Oh, yeah.
And I was
man.
fortunate to do the single "Stop Your Sobbing" for that album, and
Oh,
that's a
produced by
classic.
Nick Lowe. I did not know that.
Yeah,
All
Nick
right.
Lowe.
From the album Pretenders, which is that
The
black
first
and white album.
the black
right?
and white Stark album.
Stop Your
Well, it's actually a
Sobbing.
color shot of them on a white background, a group shot. It's a very the first album. And John Gillespie, the art director, said before I was, he gave me that assignment. He said, "Spencer, will you hear this group we just signed called the Pretenders?" He said, "The DJs don't have to get paid money. Just put the needle on the record; it'll sell itself."
Huh,
I'll never forget that
yeah.
line. So then
All right.
So then years later, Bob Gruen calls me up and he says, "Hey, do you want to work on Dee Dee's new album?" I said, "Okay." And then Judith and I went over to the Chelsea Hotel, met Dee Dee and his girlfriend at that time, Vera Ramone King, and this album, which is a classic, people have said to me, "Well, if you don't like the album, you'll love the cover." That's a classic line I've always gotten. And a lot of Bob Gruen photographs on there, which he sent me a whole bunch of photographs. I said, "You know what? Usually it's one photograph on the front, usually you see, or one on the couple on the back." I said, "I'm going to use as many photographs as I can." And Judith had a lot to do with the logo, the Dee Dee King logo. We work with a great letterer. And this came up, and I thought it was a really great cover. And hip hop, going hip hop, Dee Dee going hip hop.
Yeah. And this album does have the barcode. When you started
Right.
putting barcodes on the album, was it a kind of a how are we going to put this?
Oh
with
God,
the
it
art?
was terrible. Well, you know, they would do first. It started like you got to use the original size, and then people would what they call truncated it.
Right.
So they made it very small and very thin, and cut it in half, and things like that started going on. With thank God, and try to make it less, whatever. But visually,
I'm all right. So now they have the barcodes, and my question is: did the artist make more money as a result of having the barcodes? Because isn't that the whole idea of tracking it? Probably not. I like the tracks on this album. First, if you're listening, it is in. It's got the photos of Dee Dee. It's got his hat on. I mean, it kind of looks like that Kid Rock thing going on.
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But this is in 19. Let me see. Let's see what year this is.
And this is all, by the way.
1989.
And Zach, all those photographs of Bob Gruen's photographs are amazing.
Yeah,
to me.
they're really cool.
He's just really did a great shoot on Dee Dee.
And Dee Dee looks like he's having a lot of fun during the shoot, which is everything. And so it's standing in the spotlight, Dee Dee King, it's in pink and white, and you got your purple. And then on the backside, you have more of the album information, Sire at the bottom, and more pictures of Dee Dee. And then let's go over side one. You got Mashed Potato Time, Too Much to Drink, Baby Doll, Poor Little Rich Girl, Commotion in the Ocean. Side two is German Kid, Brooklyn Babe, Emergency, The Crusher, I Want, What I Want, When I Want It. Just based on those titles now and the album cover, I would look at this and go, now I have to hear the album, because this is...
You know what's amazing? I'm looking at the album. I never really noticed this, but sometimes I don't realize what I do, but look at the front cover. I mean, one picture is Dee Dee looking up at the logo. The other one, he's right in the center. He's like looking back at you. It's very intense, actually, and it made sense to use those photographs for the front. But even when you go to the back, there's so many great photographs. It's different.
Yeah,
It's a different
I like
thing.
that one. All right.
Now we're going to go to an era where I have to give credits here for Judith Salovitz, Sylvia Reed, and myself combined to do some amazing graphics. So there's a little bit of silence, going on, and then all of a sudden, da 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 da.
Lou Reed.
Lou Reed.
The New York
He
LP.
signed by Sire. Seymour Stein signed him, and this is a big album. It's just resurgence of his career. Very big.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. When it came out, it was 1989, I think. 1989, 90. And I just liked the song Dirty Boulevard. It was just like, it was gritty. It had a nice sound. It was like Lou, but, sometimes with Lou, you couldn't say everything was melodic, right?
Right.
Yes. But that one to me is like, hey, it's got a groove to it. It's kind of melodic. It's catchy. So that particular track, if you haven't heard Dirty Boulevard, you got to listen to that one. But the album cover itself, you got I guess, is this in an alley in the back?
Waring Abbott, let me tell you the story. Waring Abbott called me up and said, look, Lou and Sylvia need a portfolio. Why don't you send your portfolio down? And that's how it starts. And then Sylvia comes to our office, and Judith and I and Sylvia working together on this. I mean, it started with a photograph on the front, which Lou saw early 1930s German photograph, and a group of guys in an alley, something like that title. And he said, well, I'll do that in a concept for the front cover, and that's how that, shot by Waring, each individual stripped together, with a brick wall behind it.
And Lou's looking good here. He's got, guns. He's in good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
all different pictures of Lou.
And Sylvia went through a whole trip with Lou. I think she came up with the title of New York, and he had a problem with it. And eventually he did that title because Lou is New York.
Was it really difficult to take the different photos based on the technology of the time and make it look like it's one photo?
Well, this is a great story. At that time, for the first time, they were using computers for separations. And then when you gave separations before printed, you dealt with these overlays of different overlays of color. And so I could go in there and just literally piece these figures together on computer at the separator, and then I retouched a lot. And actually, Warner's told me, he says, Spencer, stop getting in there, you're costing us money. But you had to do that because of the shadows, and if you look at it, it's very get everything lined up with the shadows and making it look like these people are together. But that's what it wasn't the old. Thank God it wasn't the old type of thing in the old days where you couldn't put these pieces together so easily, and that's what computers. So I was lucky to be in the age of computer.
Yeah, really, it's at the very beginning, because a lot of us, even on the radio side, we didn't have computers until the mid '90s, to do any of our stuff. So, yeah, 1989, you're putting this together with some computer help. That's really cool.
That's what makes it great. And it's a little bit of touch of the change. It's not really black and white if you look at it.
No, it's not. And then you got the marker that goes New York, as if it was
transparent.
Yeah, but almost like you were doing one of those proofs with the photographs, and you just mark it with a big marker, go New York on it.
Yeah,
it's at the top. It's on the right side.
I picked that type, and also the Lou Reed type. I picked an outline type, so that the background goes through.
Yeah,
so then the background goes through.
Yeah, that's neat. Also about this, it's from area zip code 10019. Which over here it says Rockefeller Plaza, which I was right before by saying Radio City Music Hall on that earlier album. So now we know.
You know what's interesting?
Curiosity served.
There's a big thing going on with the lyrics. Now, Lou was into E.E. Cummings, so if you have the cassette or the inner sleeve, the lyrics are set running into each other.
Yeah, because...
And the first, I don't think I have the inner sleeve there.
No, there's not here.
The first letter of every line is capitalized, so that's what makes you be able to read easy. And that's the first time it was ever done. I thought it was a genius idea.
Well, let's go to the next one.
Okay, and we're all involved. Again, Judith, myself, and Sylvia are involved in all the rest of these pieces I'm showing. Okay, Magic and Lost, Louis Jamais photograph shot of Lou in Paris, and he did some this artwork with his photographs. Louis Jamais, gorgeous picture.
And on this, you have these symbols.
The alchemy symbols. That was Judith got together with Sylvia, and they picked out these symbols for the songs, which went with each song.
Yeah.
On the front cover, the type is frontwards and backwards, and the idea was to put it up to a mirror, and you're able to see the type of the other.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
It was kind of a cool thing. But the symbols were a big thing with alchemy research, and Judith and Sylvia came up with that idea.
I mean, how did they get to that point? Like, let me use some alchemy symbols. Were they looking at Zozo or something like that?
I think Lou has this side of him which is like gets into these things. I think you know what I mean.
Well,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, okay.
And so it sort of fit. It sort of fit. I don't know. It's funny. I don't remember the original. I know that Judith and Sylvia, definitely Sylvia, came up with this idea of these alchemy symbols with Judith, and they both researched it. But I don't remember where the original, why the original concept. But it makes sense. I mean, it's kind of, and it's a black and white album also with a touch of red in it. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Just a subtle color. Lou to me was black and white. I mean, he wasn't a full color picture. You know what I mean? Lou had this whole dark thing, and like the visualization with Lou.
But there was no gray area with Lou. Black and white, but no gray.
No gray.
It was like point. Either, yeah, that's an interesting personality trait that he had. And he was able to, with you working with Judith, he was able to express his personality on these album covers. And
it was really the three of it. I mean, Sylvia and I and Judith had an amazing chemistry for design, and Sylvia was really, I mean, Lou really trusted her with being a creative director, so the whole thing really worked out marvelously. The next one is the single, which came off Magic and Lost. So good. That was put out as special color. Embossed almost thing. Right. It was a very special edition.
So actually,
that's a rare one too. That's a rare one to find. You cannot find that one. There are others you can find, but that one is.
You can actually put your fingers over and feel the typeset and the different printing on it.
Exactly.
And for those listening, if you worked at a radio station, a lot of times you wouldn't get the complete album, because there was always a rush. Sometimes you'd get the promo before the album was released so that you were already playing the track. This way people would go to the record store and start to look for it. So I get, for whatever reason, they would send us these promo discs. And the advantage was, if I was in charge of archiving and putting the music into the system or getting it, into the studio, you made it easy for me to find. And that's what it was about. And then some of us, as we were doing our jobs, now we would take these CDs, sometimes we'd transfer them to what's called a cart, right? And this way, it was like an 8-track design. We would go into the studio, we would take this and go from the CD player, we'd level it all up to make sure it wasn't out of phase or anything like that, and we'd record it in real time. Wow. No digital transfer. And then we would take that and we would play them out of carts. It just made things easier. Also made it more difficult for the disc jockey to cheat, although most of us knew how to get around that kind of thing. Right. And then we would take these promos, and if we didn't have any furniture in the house and no food, we'd bring them to the record store and sell them, make some money that way.
Wow.
Then they put holes in them so you get caught easier, but the record stores would still buy them because they wanted them. Other people valued them. So that's how some of us put food on the table, And then in my collection at home, I have, I think, a copy of this. So
cool.
Not uncommon to have those promos. And this I love because it's metal.
The metal pro only, very limited edition. They printed this in Germany in metal, and here the United States didn't want to feel bad not doing it, so thank God they did it. But it's an elaborate package. By the way, I have to bring in a name, Dennis Asienzo. Dennis did additional design with us on this packaging, and also coming later with the Velvet Underground.
I have to. All right, so it's the same photo that is on the cover of the other one, Magic and Lost, that's out of Germany. So this is made out of metal. Now, as you were showing me the Fear of Music and that type of texture, I was wondering if anybody at the time thought, let's make it into a metal cover, because it would have been a copy of that. But this is really cool. Now, the reason why this is awesome and it's in metal and the way it's put together in the packaging, for a while, when you would buy a CD, you felt like you were getting gypped, because there was nothing better than the album. You had the album, the sleeve, the artwork that went over it. Sometimes you'd be able to find the lyrics, information about the band, like we did with the Ramones, where you had the address of the fan club. Well, Lou and whoever came up with this idea, this is brilliant because it gave you something of value. This is metal, It's and then what do you call that? it's
I
silk
don't know.
screen
It's like
kind of thing.
I forgot. Yeah, it had to be some sort of silk screen on it. And what's really amazing is that metal now it's aged. It gets like a very rough
Yeah, it's
colored
almost like
surface.
it's like an old
ionized.
Dodge
What do they call it?
patina. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
old Dodge.
So it looks better older than
Yeah.
when you get it shined up and
Yeah,
clean.
yeah,
Now it's like really
Yeah,
raw.
and you know, people pay a lot of money to do that to objects to make them look
Oh,
old.
really?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a big thing, you know. But this is awesome. I love that.
It was pro
Well-
only, and
Oh.
I think that's as Lou and Sylvia were investigating the way treating memorial things in the world, the different ways they did it. And anyway, this came up to be the answer to this.
Well, luckily we have our video.
Oh,
guy
the disc
here, so
too.
I'm
The
just gonna-
disc, also the disc.
Yes.
The burned disc. That's a big thing. Dennis did that on his computer.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like paper, but it's done in a way that it's raised, and you can feel the texture of it. That's it's got texture to it. It's not just flat.
And I set the lyrics in Helvetica Extra Light, which is a gorgeous face. Helvetica in a very light extra light. So that was attached in there with the booklet.
What's interesting is as they press the metal,
Yeah.
you could still smell the oil
Wow.
that was used in the pressing. It's very interesting. All right, let's move to the next one.
Okay, now we have a book cover.
Book cover, yeah.
This was Anthony DeCurtis wrote about this in a book that's out right now called Lou Reed: A Life. Amazing book that Judith and I and Sylvia are mentioned. And anyway, he wrote about this book cover, which was put out during the time of Magic and Lost, and that's the lyrics of Lou. Won a lot of book cover design awards. The three of us worked on it. Matt Moharan did the photograph and printed in gold and black, and the area where the type is was semi-gloss.
Yeah.
So it gave a quality that was unreal.
And if you are listening, once again, it's a profile picture, and it almost has an old type of photo, I guess, effect to it. Something that you would find in your photo collection when you got an old picture of grandma or grandpa, and there's some yellowing on it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sort of fading. And he's being somberly analytical in this. I just wonder what was on his mind. He's probably going, you know what? I'm going to go to Coney Island and get myself a Nathan's hot dog. Because that's what I'd be thinking.
Well,
like,
you know, you've got to know also, Matt Moharan was a very dark photographer. He worked with groups like MTV videos and things like that, very dark groups, I would call it. This was perfect for him. I mean, the feeling of a photographer getting into the picture like that.
Well, yeah.
From
In
Matt.
other words, for that photographer, the perfect subject.
Perfect subject.
Let's move
No
on
problem.
to the next one.
Okay, so
the bananas are coming.
So this is where we start with the Velvet Underground packaging. That's not the original cover. It's a promo slip,
Right.
But you'll be able to see it. But the metallic bananas. So we had this idea. Sylvia came up with an awesome idea of saying, well, foil is all over the factory. Let's get this banana in a metallic look and the letters. And we did a foil. Judith and I bought this aluminum foil, pressed down the letters, pressed down on a clay molded banana by a student who did it. And these was composited with a velvet photograph background and became a whole new image. I thought it was very brilliant because it's a pure concept. It's not a forced concept. I mean, usually you always saw the Andy Warhol banana by itself. That was it in the story. Now we got a new banana with the way it was. The factory was foil.
And then you're using Roman numerals. See, this is going to be a problem with Super Bowls. By the time they get to 1993, it's going to
Oh,
look
right.
like this.
That's right.
And nobody will be able to figure it out unless you took Latin in high school.
That's true.
I noticed that. Did you go? Where did you get the actual letters?
Oh my God! So I go to the shop that had letters actually, and they had the font that goes along with the album. It's Adobe Garamond, and I bought these letters. Actually pasted them together, and I was very good at this, you could see, and just pasted them together on a board, pressed down the foil. Then the photographer, Ted Chin did a lot of this photography. He was able to take the shine out of it because it's very hard to shoot foil, you know.
I'll tell you what it's almost like how the foil has a shiny side and then it's got that, dull side.
Dull side.
So he took the shiny out so it
Right.
looks dull. You're right. The way you spaced the Velvet Underground across with those letters that you got from the shop, it's amazing how you kept it all straight. I don't know how you
That's
did
the
that.
way. That's the way I was. I was very precise, really good. Whatever I did, even Electroset, when I pasted it on letters, everything was straight.
How
I
long
did
did it
things
take
really
you
cool.
to do that?
What?
How long did it take you to do that?
Well, you know what? It didn't take that long, but I'll tell you the truth. This is where traditional design works. If I did that in computer, or anybody did in computer, it would take hours, to make it look like that. Here it is, just paste it down, bat it out, shoot it, boom, end of story.
That's great.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next one. See, that's
so
really
now
interesting.
we're coming
Now
to
you got the
good
color
stuff.
form thing.
The
Yeah.
color form concept that
yeah.
Sylvia came up with.
I don't know why people like the color form. It was usually made for girls at first with their little models, and then it went over to, I think, superheroes or something like that. Yeah. So this is made out of plastic material, think color form, and then you have the velvet underground on the top, and you have all these little bananas, like one almost peeled off. Do these peel off, or they?
Yeah, they can peel off.
They can peel off. So
Yeah.
they're actually really like color
They're
form.
really, they're really
Oh,
set
wow.
that way. And then the inside, the disc, Dayglow blue, bananas
Yes.
on a Dayglow yellow background.
And then you got
And the booklet
insert,
comes
the
in.
booklet.
Yeah, you got a folded
So
booklet
this
that
is
comes
great.
with
Now,
it.
I could tell you that this is the promo copy because it's got
Got
the
the
hole,
hole in it.
which is prized by record stores. Like if you go into the Village, maybe on Bleecker Street, there's a record store. They love this kind of stuff. People like buying the radio promo versions because they're like, oh, I knew the right people kind of deal.
Yeah, this was a limited edition also, so it was being sold. It wasn't a pro only like the metal box. So.
Yeah, and pale blue eyes. Sometimes I feel
Oh,
so
the
happy.
pale blue
Sometimes
eyes,
I
I
feel
love
so
it.
sad. Sometimes I
that
feel so happy, but mostly you just make me mad.
It's a beautiful song, right?
You just make me mad.
Now there was we did a poster, which won major awards. Billboard gave it the best poster of the year. The same thing. The poster is a composite again. It's a beautiful, won many awards. I don't have it here, but you'll see it when you see the interview. But it's gorgeous. It's this I got.
Oh, we got the box set.
Well,
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So the
this
box
is the
set
CD
comes
box
in.
set.
That's the last piece of the puzzle. Peel up banana on the front.
Andy Warhol's
You come
design.
in with a booklet with
great
graphics.
I love this. Let me tell you. I like the fact that you give the fan an idea what it's like in a recording studio. This is when they used multi-track tape. We have a kind of a tape player. You take the multi-track and you would mix it down on the half inch or the quarter inch, right? See that'd be your master over there. But a good studio engineer would make sure that on the board everything is marked off, so you know exactly your potentiometers and where they're going, right? The cables have little ties on them. And then on the master tape box where you have the multi-tracks, maybe it's a 4-track to 8-track tape, whatever it might be, it's a gigantic box. And on the front is where all the notes would be. So somebody must have taken the picture of these various boxes.
That's right.
And
So we designed that with a group called Smay Vision, and so Sylvia, Judith, and I are involved with a group called Smay Vision. We put that package together, but it's I love the tape box visualization. Like you said, it's like raw.
yeah,
It's like this is it. This is it.
This is really cool because it's got just regular handwriting on it, and then you got your scribbles, right? Because you got it wrong, and you're just not going to keep changing the label, right?
Right.
So it has Mayfair Recording Studios Inc. 701 7th Avenue, New York, 10036, which is like 10036. I think that's 46th and 6th. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. But anyway, this would be great because 46th and 7th. I'm going to go try to find that address.
Wow.
I do that. When I see an album cover and it's from the New York area, I try to find that location. Like the physical graffiti building, or if it was there's like the Doors album, I think is one of the areas around here. I'll also try to find the location of the TV shows, like 1049 Park Avenue, and then over I think on 86th Street where the Jeffersons lived, and the Drummonds for those kind. I love doing that kind of stuff. I'll do the same thing with albums. Great. Yeah, this is really cool.
Yeah, this gets reprinted a lot and sold a lot. This edition box set is constantly redone, sold. You know, it's a major print job.
I don't know which one this is, but I love the cover. Oh, all right. So on this particular CD is Venus in Furs, Prominent Men, Heroin, I'm Waiting for the Man, Wrap Your Troubles, All Tomorrow's Parties, Lou Reed guitar, harmonica, Sterling Morrison guitar, John Davies, Cale viola, and Garina. I can't make that out. But it's monophonic, and it's on 7.5-inch reel. Okay, 2 tracks, and it's got 1 mil acetate, 1,800 feet. 7-inch reel. So those are the smaller reels.
Right.
And if you put the camera on the reel-to-reel machine, that's what we would play them back on.
Mm-hmm.
And there were occasions when you would get a reel-to-reel from somebody,
right,
and play the track on the air. That was always fascinating because that meant that it wasn't even put on CD or onto vinyl yet. Wow. You had one of the copies of the actual master, the mix down. Now that's really fascinating.
It's a great set.
Yeah, that's. I got to say, besides the metal one, this is right up there. I'd want to have it in my collection, even if I never played it. And a lot of people do that. You know, they'll buy the collection. Oh, and the booklet
book has
that comes
great
in.
graphics.
Yeah, that's really good.
Graphics.
Did you put the book together?
Yeah, all of us put that.
Wow.
May Vision. Yeah,
the book is.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah,
that was a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, that is a
lot of posters.
That's the centerpiece.
It was like we go into May Vision was right next to me, so we work with them. But it was like you go into their office and the posters are all over the floor. You know, it's like just strip them together, man.
Then you have All Tomorrow's Parties backed with I'll Be Your Mirror, The Velvet Underground, and Nico.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it?
I think so.
Yeah. But it's on the Verve record. I just like the fact that you got the 45 with the Verve. Yeah. That's cool.
But right now, to bring you up to date, where Sylvia, Judith, and I have our Velvet Underground design in a event in New York called the Velvet Underground Experience that goes from October 10th to December 30th, 2018, a very historic gallery event that's going on now in New York. And we're still designing. I mean, Judith and I are together designing. By the way, we're in the MoMA, AIGA, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame archival permanent collections.
Nice.
And we're getting a lot of respect. And I've just put up, I think it's very important with our lives, a site called Vinyl Talk, which is now on Facebook, which will be expanding to other venues.
Yeah.
And
I think
actually planning with Pat and Zach to work together on that also, and on some other venues with that Vinyl Talk. All about vinyl.
Well, yeah.
Anybody's got anything on vinyl, just go. It's on Facebook right now, so you just go to Vinyl Talk, one word, search it out, easy. Boom, become a member, and if you like vinyl, you're gonna love the site. It's got everything about. And the Making Vinyl event, which I judge with Judith every year, that's another big vinyl event going on every year in New York, and proud to be a part of that. And we're talking vinyl here,
Yeah, and
Well, thanks for having me on, Zach.
It's always a pleasure. This is probably for me the most fun I have with music is the wrappings and looking at the information on it and the addresses and the fan clubs and where the photos come from, the different types of art that's part of it, the different types of I guess you would say materials used.
We had I got to bring something in that we did. Howell Gallery in May 2017 had an event. It's A Long Way to the Top, which is from AC/DC.
Which is about our one of Spencer's favorite songs. Exactly. You know what we're going to do? After we wrap up, I'm just going to play It's a Long Way to the Top.
And then, but it was all about our music life with a what do you call, a business point thing, and then we told the stories. Now, what we're talking about here is very interesting because it's about these stories behind each of these pieces that we've designed, and that's what makes it so interesting. And we plan to do other things with this tour, probably with Sylvia involved, and maybe John Holmstrom too, that we did originally. But it's an important event, and it's very educational too for music.
It's great.
People learn about it. The stories that people don't know about. That's
the stories behind the stories, always the most fascinating of all the stories.
Broadcasting from the Rock and Roll Bomb Shelter.
I'm ready.
I wanna rock! Surrounded by radioactive biscuits and the world-famous Rock Hives, located 40 feet beneath the radio station. It's the Big Fat American Rock Show with your host, the Doc of Rock, the Professor, everyone's favorite mad music magician, crazy uncle, and your best friend in the whole wide world, Zach Martin.